The Heat faced the Golden State Warriors for the second time in less than a week, and while Miami's offense looked sluggish to start, eventually they played the style they've been looking for all season: active defense, stretching the floor, getting key contributions off the bench, and the result was a 7-point win and Miami's best game of the season. What did the Heat do different? Whose big performances helped Miami seal the victory? And is this style sustainable? We'll break it all down on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering the Miami Heat, however you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. A really big win tonight, David. No other way to put it. Over the defending champion Golden State Warriors, the Heat winning 116-109. Huge fourth quarter, outscoring the Warriors 30-15 in that fourth quarter. Defense locked up after giving up 32 points in the third, 38 points in the third quarter, 32 points in the second quarter, just 15 points in the fourth quarter. They go to that 2-3 zone, and then the offense catches fire, finally scoring 30 points in the fourth quarter after just scoring 25 in the second, 28 in the third, and then the big bucket. Jimmy Butler with that mid-range dagger over Klay Thompson with less than 10 seconds to go to ice the game, put the Heat up 5 instead of 3, which, as we know, a 3-point lead is basically nothing against these Golden State Warriors. So a huge win. They were 2-5 coming into this thing after the disappointing road trip. They get this first game at home on the first night of a back-to-back, and they get revenge over a Warriors team that they fought hard but lost to last week. They get the win this week. But to me, as big of a win as this was, David, I think it was even more important because we finally, I thought at least, saw the identity that this Heat team wants to play with and frankly had been missing for so much of the start of the season.
You and I have been talking about since even before the start of the season that this was who we thought they should be, taking a lot of threes. They wound up taking, I'm not sure if it was a season high, 42 3-pointers, but they made 16 of them.
Yeah, I think the season high was last week against the Warriors at 43, but roughly the same. Yeah,
that's the style they wanted to play. And then they went with that zone defense. Early on in the first quarter, you could see how sluggish they were, like I mentioned before. They just weren't taking those shots. A lot of times when the shot was there, they would just put the ball down, drive towards the rim, and pull up for like a mid-range jumper, 15, 18 feet, something like that. You know, you've mentioned before the number one team in terms of taking mid-range shots this season. And that's not good offense because whether they make it or not, and they were missing a lot of those, it's not enough to keep up with an electric, exciting offense like Golden State's, obviously. And so eventually Duncan Robinson, Max Strus came to the game, and we saw them actively looking to take those shots from beyond the perimeter. As soon as they had even a little bit of daylight, they were letting it fly. And from there, Miami's offense opened up. Jimmy Butler wound up taking a season high 7 3-pointers. Duncan was fantastic. Max Strus with 24 points off the bench. Really just great offense. And it led to some fantastic defense as well. You know, they were hitting those 3-point shots, and then they were able to get back on fast and limit any kind of fast break opportunities. I think Golden State only had 5 fast break points in total. Yeah. So that's something that Miami has given up a lot of over the first few games of the season. They were able to hold their own. So it was just a really fantastic overall effort from the Heat team that's been looking for something similar to this all season long.
Yeah, they didn't feel stretched by the pace of this game, where I thought last week in San Francisco, they did feel a little bit stressed out by how fast that pace of the game was being played.
Having to work
tonight,
extra
it felt
hard.
And tonight, look, it got off to a rough start. They kept losing Steph and Klay and a bunch of guys on screens early in the first quarter, but they pretty much locked it down. They went to a zone often and early and often in this game, which I thought was really helpful. And Bam and Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra all credited that 2-3 zone in the fourth quarter for the reason why they were able to limit Golden State to 15. A Golden State team that does not score 15 points in a quarter. That is not what the Warriors do. And the Heat limited this Warriors team to a 15 points in the quarter. I want to go back to the 3-point shooting, though, because it's such an important point, and it's something that we've been hammering. This team needs to take 43s a game. Point blank, they have to. There is no excuse not to. When you have as many shooters as you do, when you've got Tyler Herro, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson. By the way, we will talk about Tyler Herro and his availability potentially for Wednesday night's game against the Kings later on. But this team has to shoot threes, not just because of the personnel of the players who, including the guys who can make those threes, but your two best players, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, need space. They need more space. And I look at Bam's game in particular. What did Pat Riley say at the end of last season? 15 quality shots per game. What did Bam Adebayo have tonight? 15 shots. And I would argue all of them quality. All of them quality. 8 of 15 overall, 19 points. He had one, I think maybe it was his first shot, was still that 5 or 6 foot little push shot that he always tries to get to. Too often. It's like 60% of his shots are from that mid-range, 2-pointers outside the restricted area. That's too many. He needs to get to the basket. And when he got the two-man game going with Duncan Robinson, specifically
Fantastic.
on that dribble handoff, and Duncan Robinson was so big, and I want to talk about him even more. I'm sure we will in credit cookies, but he's getting that two-man game with Duncan Robinson. That two-man game with Max Strus, he had this great little high-low read with Strus that got Strus a wide-open cut and dunk at the basket. When these guys are taking 40-plus three-pointers in a game and obviously making them at the rate we know that they can make them at, again, best shooting team in the league last year by percentage, we expected that to be the case again this year. It just opens things up for Bam where he doesn't have to go to that kind of finesse 5-6 foot push shot game that's just not an efficient look. As good as he's gone on it, it's not as efficient as just going to the basket and finishing with a layup or even better, a dunk. And he got that more than we've ever seen this season tonight. 15 quality looks at the basket. Big reason why the Heat won tonight.
I think he had like 3 dunks off that pick and roll situation. Like he was just, it was working all night. I want to go back to, you mentioned Tyler, and obviously he incurred an injury, just only played 6.5 minutes. But I think he was like the most egregious
Tyler,
in
10
terms
minutes.
of 10 minutes in total. Well, either way,
yeah.
I think he was part of the problem, what I was referring to earlier, because he was just like, again, when the shot was there from the 3-point line, I saw him a number of times just put the ball down and drive towards the defense, drive into it, and try to look for an open shot inside in the mid-range area or get to the rim. Not very effective. And there were times there where he was catching the ball wide open, a 3-point shot, and just not comfortable letting it fly for whatever reason. And I think that's part of where the offense starts to bog down. Then you put in designated shooters like Max Strus and Duncan Robinson, all of a sudden the floor opens up much more completely. It was a huge difference in just the overall style of offense midway through that first quarter.
0 of Tyler's shots from 3-point range. He took 4 in the 10 minutes. It wasn't a whole lot, but none of them from beyond the arc, to your point. And I noticed the same thing. But more importantly, I noticed Kyle Lowry taking 8 threes. I noticed Jimmy Butler taking 7 threes, tied for a season high. The last season, it was tied with the last time this team played Golden State last week. He also took 7 threes. I actually asked Jimmy Butler about that after the game, and he said, yeah, he would when the offense is moving like this, he feels comfortable taking those threes. And I think that's key. Like, Jimmy Butler's not going to be the guy that comes out and starts shooting threes right away. But when the offense is humming in this way and the ball is moving in this way, how many assists did they have? 32 assists on 40 made shots. That's top incredible. 1% in the league, kind of good. That's the Heat that we've come to know. That's the Heat last year that were among the top teams in the league in moving the ball. So it comes when you've got Duncan and Lowry and Tyler and Max and all these guys shooting those threes and you're getting them up at that frequency, then all of a sudden Jimmy Butler can get in on the party. And I think that's huge. And look, this team wants to take 43s. This is not just me saying it. It's not just you saying it. It's not just anybody saying it. Talking to Kyle Lowry in the locker room after this game, we were asking him, like, what do you guys go over in that big Monday practice? It was the first practice that they've had all regular season. And he mentioned the transition defense and he mentioned the 3-point shooting. And he mentioned, hey, we got to get guys like Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, all the guys we've been talking about, get them more threes. But also himself, he said, I need to take more threes. Jimmy Butler needs to take more threes. Everybody needs to take more threes. Bam Adebayo doesn't need to take threes. He took 0 tonight, and that's fine. Like we said, 15 quality looks. Most of them have to be by the basket. That, to me, is quality for Bam. But it just felt like finally the offense was getting the looks that they wanted to get in the right spots at the rate that they should be taking them at. Let's talk a little bit more about the defense, too, because I think we found the identity there, too. That zone was huge for them tonight. That's been part of Miami's identity since basically the bubble season, I would say, mixing and matching personnel, but kind of the same core. They've gotten so good at that zone. everybody credited the zone for that fourth quarter run where they limited Golden State to 15 points, but also that transition defense got so much better. To your point, like you said earlier, again, Larry asked about that. What was the difference? What did you guys drill in practice? It was getting back, obviously, with speed and with urgency, but also not trying to run back to your assigned man who you had at the beginning of the game, just picking up whoever's closest to you. And then the third layer of that is communicating down the line. Hey, I got this guy. You got that guy. You get this guy. Boom, boom, boom. And we saw that against maybe the best transition team of the last decade, the most dangerous one in the Golden State Warriors, at least. And they did a really phenomenal job defensively, I thought.
Yeah, no, the zone defense, it just felt like it was a much more functional part of what Miami was doing in order to succeed tonight. Like you could see it when they broke out the zone, I think midway through the second quarter, it was part of their big run there. And all of a sudden you see everything just clicking. They're forcing turnovers. They're limiting the open looks, challenging guys from the perimeter, running them off, just making things much more difficult for them overall, slowing down their offense. And that was exactly what they needed. And you saw it so effectively in the fourth quarter, particularly when they held them to 15 points. It was a true weapon tonight. And it's something that I think they should continue to do moving forward.
Well, that kind of leads me to my last question for you is this just a function of playing Golden State? We saw them again take 43 threes the last time this team played. They played them really competitive. You and I got on this show and said, hey, they lost, but kind of a moral victory considering how they played. And we feel like they played well. And then they follow that up with a really bad loss against Sacramento. But do we think that this is something that can kind of carry over? Like this is something that could maybe spur a run where Miami feels like it did finally find its identity?
I don't know. We've seen Miami kind of adopt the identity of whoever they face, or even in this current iteration of the Heat, with Jimmy Butler, they kind of play down to their opponent to some degree. I'd like to see them just kind of establish who they are a little bit sooner in the game. And I think a lot of that depends on whether or not Tyler's available tomorrow. I don't want to throw him under the bus or make him the scapegoat for Miami wanting to win, but I don't know that he's as effective in the zone if he's out on the floor. I mean, we've seen him kind of thrown in there in the past, but not necessarily as quick or just doesn't make those changes as quickly as some of the other guys like Max or Gabe or others. So I wonder if he had been playing more minutes, if he had been available and out there, whether or not the zone would have worked as effectively as it did. So I think that's a big part of it moving forward. Look, I don't know. It's a tough balance because he provides so much offensively, but there still is questions about him defensively, especially within the zone.
I know you wanted to touch on that later on when we kind of dive into the Tyler Herro stuff a little bit more, but we do have credit cookies next. We're going to get to that. But first, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Like hiring a great producer for your podcast or the assistant who makes your day-to-day that much easier, there's nothing like making that perfect hire to help your business. That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which makes it incredibly easy to create a free job post. Plus, you can add your job post and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. So if you still need to hit your annual goals, get some help around the holidays, or close out that final round of KPIs, LinkedIn Jobs can help you end the year right. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. It is a Heat win, David, which means it's time to get in the kitchen and whip up some credit cookies. What kind of credit cookies are coming out of the oven tonight?
Well, today was Halloween. My son went trick-or-treating. He got one set of cookies in his Halloween basket. It was golden Oreos. So I think that was kind of fitting considering Miami's victory over the Golden State Warriors. The great taste of Oreo cookies, but golden.
Is it, so it's just the same? Is it also, I would imagine it's a vanilla cookie, but is it not? Is it just a food coloring thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't try them. So to be honest with you,
So you lied. You said it was the same great taste, but you didn't know that.
no, it'd be the same taste. I mean, I've had them before. They're little golden cookies. I haven't had these in particular, but I've had them in the past. Yeah, it's the same thing. They're all cookies, man.
Feel like it's not all the same thing, and I really don't think that all cookies are just all cookies. But
they're golden, Wes. They're golden, like Golden State. That's the point.
I know. I understand the point. I get the pun, but I think the golden Oreos are vanilla flavored while the original black cookie Oreo is chocolate. I don't know if that's so. I don't know if that's true. I'm imagining
they're not even chocolate.
True.
Like Oreo is not even chocolate. It's like Oreo.
What are you talking about? No, it's chocolate.
It's not really chocolate. It's Oreo.
What do you mean? It actually is really chocolate. I would argue it is really chocolate. It feels
more chocolatey than anything else. I don't think so. I mean,
I didn't say more chocolatey than anything else. I think Oreo is chocolate. Okay. Our first credit cookie is not going to you, that's for sure. But I think
Duncan Robinson.
We're dunking these golden Oreos. Duncan Robinson. How many credit cookies does he get? 17 points, 6 of 10 shooting overall, 5 of 8 from 3-point range, 3 assists.
Yep.
Did get 3 personal fouls, 2 of which I thought were 1 or 2 of I really thought were just classic Duncan stupid fouls. But overall, I thought he actually played really good defense. He was in the right spots. He was contesting shots. A really good Duncan Robinson game overall. A good game from a lot of Heat players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different players in double digits, plus 9 points from Dwayne Dedman, who had a really nice game off the bench. I don't know if we're giving him any credit cookies, but he was finally a plus in the box score, +7. I think some of the time off maybe helped him a little bit. But it was obviously like the Heat missed having an actual backup center. That said, Duncan Robinson, how many credit cookies are we giving him, considering how many we have to give out?
I got to give him 3.
I think that's fair.
You could see the impact when he was in there. Not only, again, stretching the floor, making plays, driving in to the rim, incorporating what we've seen from him more frequently this season, having a nice 2-man game with Bam Adebayo, much more handoffs along the perimeter. The offense just seemed much more fluid when he was out on the floor. In fact, at one point when Golden State came back in the third quarter, I'm thinking to myself, put Duncan in. Like, he was the difference in the first half. Put him in there, and sure enough, they put him in there. Miami's able to kind of extend and close the game and make sure that they were able to stay together, stay close to Golden State, because they were down as much as 10 points in the third quarter. So, I think he was a huge factor tonight. Defensively,
going shot for shot with Steph in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
I couldn't believe how much of the offense was going through Duncan Robinson in the most important moments of that game. You've got Steph Curry doing Steph Curry things, not just with the shot. What did Steph finish with tonight? 23 points on 7 of 14 shooting, 4 of 10 overall. More importantly, 13 rebounds.
Triple-double.
Jesus.
Yeah, triple-double.
Yeah, triple-double. 13 assists. I thought his playmaking was excellent. He had that great pass to the corner for Andrew Wiggins, started celebrating before the shot even left Wiggins' hands. He was doing magic Steph stuff. He was on one. And then you had on the Heat side, Duncan Robinson going shot for shot with them in the fourth quarter, and then also just being such a factor in the flow of the offense. It wasn't just, hey, get Duncan Robinson open in the corner or above the break. It wasn't just even, it was a lot of dribble handoff stuff, but it wasn't just dribble handoff stuff. He was setting screens. He was touching the ball, even if he wasn't the guy shooting it. He brought the ball up a couple of times.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen Duncan Robinson used in that way. With
he was
that
feeling confident.
breadth.
I think it was a confidence thing, because
you
could see
he
him
was feeling it.
When he was in the fourth quarter. Did you see him in the locker room at all? He didn't go up to the podium, right?
We saw him in the locker room. He was feeling good. He actually joked, because it's been, whatever. Not a great start to the season for anybody. And he was like, wow, I haven't seen you guys in a while, when all the reporters huddled around his locker. So it was his best game of the year.
Yeah, that's by far. But he's played really good over the season. Like we've talked about, he's had a couple moments here and there that haven't been so great. But overall, I think he's showing more versatility in his offensive game. His defense has tightened up to some degree. But the playmaking today, I think that was just a huge factor.
Had that great lob to Bam. I mean, they're opening up that dribble handoff action, and they were asked about it so much after the game tonight. Hey, like, is it nice to sort of just, dust off that DHO game and bring it back? And Bam and Duncan, both independent of each other, not around each other at all, basically said it never went anywhere. It's always there for us when we want to get to it. There's just that natural chemistry. I think we want to see more of Duncan and Bam playing together. I think Duncan made a strong argument tonight, played almost 26 minutes tonight. Obviously, a part of that was Tyler Herro not being available in the second half, and obviously Duncan Robinson playing as well as he did. I think there's an argument to be made that Duncan should continue to play more minutes. Over who? I don't know, because the other guy I want to talk about is Max Strus, because he played in 32 and a half minutes. He had 24 points on 8 of 17 shooting, 4 of 10 from three-point range. A really good floor game by Max Strus, I thought, overall. Yeah, I think he deserves what? At least, and floated Miami's offense when they needed it, especially in that second unit. And then obviously started for Tyler Herro when Tyler Herro wasn't available to start the second half. Two credit cookies for him?
Maybe three. I think it's,
I'm good with it.
I think it's fair. Like, again, similar to Duncan, like, just you could see the confidence, the willingness to take it at 3 in key moments there in the fourth quarter when they were trying to close the gap with Golden State. Just a functional player out there. Caleb Martin not playing much of the second half at all because Max Strus was such a positive factor, able to hold his own defensively, able to recognize his role in offense and to play it as well as he has, ever in Miami. So I think it was just a great night overall for him. So
Bam Adebayo, 19 points. We went over his game. We don't have to belabor the point here, but how many credit cookies for him? Is it another? If it's another 3, then we only have 9. So I feel like we can give him.
I think we can give him 2 and Jimmy 2.
Let's give Jimmy 1. He deserves more. But Gabe's got to get 1, man. Gabe Vincent, his defense tonight. Plus, he was a plus 29. And he didn't make a huge impact on the box score other than that. I thought his defense was phenomenal. Picking up Steph Curry in key pockets of that game. I don't want to overlook the defensive thing with him and just the way that he operated at the top of that zone too was huge, right? We talked about how important that zone was. Gabe Vincent was a part of that zone for long stretches of that game. So if you don't want to give Gabe 1, we don't have to. He deserved at least a shout out because Jimmy had the game-winning shot and he scored the most points on the team. And we're only giving him 1 credit cookie.
No, 2 steals for Gabe. And Jimmy, he had a big game. Well, not particularly effective because he was just 6 of 17 from the floor, but he was 9 of 9. Miami, a perfect 20 of 20 from the free throw line. So shout out.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, fantastic overall shooting from the line. And Jimmy, I think one of the points that we made during the last matchup against Golden State, and particularly you did, that Steph took over the game late in the fourth quarter and Jimmy did not. I think he responded somewhat, not quite in the same way because that's just not Jimmy's game. But he had some big shots on the stretch, and I think he was a different.
He had the game winner. I don't care. He took 3 shots in the fourth quarter. He took 1 in the fourth quarter in the loss against Golden State last week in San Francisco, 3 tonight in Miami. But he had the game winner. That shot, by the way, was ridiculous. Just this a broken offensive play. Heat up 3, like I said earlier, it's basically nothing against Golden State. You feel good about it, but you can't feel great about it. You can't relax, that's for sure. You want to make it a 2-possession game with less than 10 seconds to go. And Jimmy just is Spo after the game was talking about how he wanted to get into a few different actions. He had, I think maybe it was Max or Duncan initially going to screen for him, and then maybe Gabe Vincent. And then eventually it was just a broken play. Jimmy just creates something out of nothing, gets to his spot, and then just hits like this leaning mid-range jumper over Klay Thompson, around Klay Thompson, whatever. Yeah. Also should mention, made a huge block. I can't believe I haven't talked about this yet. A huge block against Steph Curry that Spo had to challenge because initially it was ruled a foul on Steph. Steph taking the 3. If the foul would have stood, Steph Curry, 90-something% free throw shooter, 92% free throw shooter,
that's a 3.
going to the line, probably making all 3. And it's a tie game. Instead, Jimmy Butler comes off the court, says, listen, I hit that. I touched the ball there before I touched his hand. And Spo says, are you sure? He goes, yes, I'm sure. I touched the ball first. Kyle Lowry comes over to Jimmy Butler and goes, are you sure? Jimmy Butler is talking about, he's sort of rehashing this conversation after the game to the reporters. Kyle Lowry, are you sure? He goes, yeah, I touched the ball first. I don't know the rules, but I'm pretty sure that counts as a block and it wouldn't be a foul. And Kyle Lowry was like, I know the rules. If you actually touch the ball before you touch Steph's hand, then it's no foul, blocked shot, or ball. And Jimmy goes, I did touch the ball first. And both Spo and Kyle Lowry, again, are you sure? Jimmy says, I am sure. Spo challenges it right there. Huge challenge. They had 2 timeouts at the time, which I think was also huge. So would have still had an extra timeout at the end if the challenge failed.
But it was a momentum shift in Miami's favor.
It was a huge momentum shifter. And then Jimmy hits the mid-range jumper at the end, which was the dagger. So whatever you want to say about Jimmy's game, he made the 2 most important plays. He made the most important defensive play of the game, the most important offensive play of the game. So the fact that we're only giving him 1 credit cookie is more of, I think, a testament to what we think of Jimmy Butler. It's just like, you're supposed to kind of do this. But it was a great game. It was a great game. He deserves more than 1. But that's all he's getting is 1 because that's all we have left. All right. Tyler Herro, he got poked in the eye in the second quarter, did not play at all in the second half, looked better in the locker room afterwards. The question is he going to be available for the Kings game Wednesday night? We will talk about that next here on Locked On Heat. All right, back here with Locked On Heat. Tyler Herro, gross poke in the eye in that second quarter, David. Immediately looked like he had a big shiner on his eye. Just the thing starts swelling up, maybe a little bit of blood there. You probably had a better view on the broadcast than I did across on the other side of the court, but
it looked like it was darker, and maybe it was just sweat, but it could have been blood as well. It was hard to tell exactly as he's walking off the court there. But I mean, you tweeted it out too for the broadcast. He's just saying Kyle is escorting him almost as if he's blinded temporarily, and he's saying, "I can't see. I can't see.
I can't see." Sure, he said he couldn't see, and then we asked about him. We asked about it after the game, wearing these huge sunglasses after the game. Wow. I'll post the video on Twitter at some point.
I think he was going to wear those anyway, but sure, he had a good reason.
Well, he has a collection of sunglasses at his locker, so I think he was going to wear sunglasses regardless because he kind of always does, but I think he picked the biggest ones, the ones that hide most of his face. But we actually walked into the locker and he immediately put those sunglasses on. Ira Winderman from the Sun Sentinel asked him to take the sunglasses off so that we could obviously get a look at his eye. Tyler Herro politely ignored his request, but went on to basically say, listen, I got poked in the eye. It was actually pretty bad, and confirmed he could not see out of that eye. Just couldn't see at all. Had to be escorted to the locker room because, again, could not see. And then he just had to wait for it, basically, for the swelling to kind of come down and to regain the vision in that eye. I asked him if it's just a matter of time or if there's actually treatment that could be done. And he was like, yeah, I actually was wondering that myself. I didn't know, like, what do you do with an eye, in terms of treatment? So they put drops in, they put something else in to see if he actually had like penicillin or something, like liquid penicillin, to see if he actually got a cut. Which I would imagine the way you find out is if you have a cut and you drop liquid penicillin, it just burns, which kind of would suck. But it turns out he doesn't have a cut in his eye, and that he thought he could actually, if he had to, that he felt like he could play in the second half. Obviously, that was not going to be the case when you suffer an injury as gross looking as that.
Eric Spoelstra said that they were trying to see whether or not he was ready to go at halftime, and then the trainers eventually shut him down there. So I guess,
but looked much better in the locker room. Not trying to bury the lead here, but looked much better in the locker room after the initial gross kind of thing that happened. In terms of his availability Wednesday night against the Sacramento Kings, he said, we'll see. I think that's fair. I think with something like that, you just kind of have to see how it reacts over time, over the next 24 hours. Just see if his vision is blurry or anything like that. You just give it a little bit more time. I guess we'll see.
I'm hoping for the Kareem goggles. Like, I don't think that's too far-fetched, right?
Yeah, he said he doesn't have any fashion goggles, but he might petition the league to see if they'll let him actually wear his fancy sunglasses in the game if he does play. So that obviously will not happen. So
I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm hoping the Kareems, the James Worthies. What other famous pair of goggles am I overlooking here? I'm sure there have been others in the past, but
Didn't Dwight Howard do the goggles for a minute?
I couldn't care less about anything that Dwight Howard's
the LeBron face mask.
That's different. That's different, right? That's a shot in the face, right?
The Rip Hamilton. The face mask won't help.
Face mask won't help. I wouldn't take that chance. Like, there's almost always some kind of arbitrary contact taking place there. Whether it's an elbow or an inadvertent elbow or a hand. This was. I think Moses Moody went up for a rebound, or he's trying to swat the ball out of Tyler's hands and inadvertently poked him in the eye there. I don't think even a foul was even called, right? It was just, it wasn't
a foul.
Right.
You just got poked in the eye. To your point, though, you were hinting at this earlier, sort of alluding to it. The way that the offense flowed when Tyler Herro wasn't in the game. Yeah. And is this maybe an opportunity to experiment a little bit with Max Strus back in that starting lineup? Because I would imagine he gets the starting spot while Tyler is out, if Tyler misses time.
Yeah, I think he's the obvious choice, right? I think we've seen that too.
Yeah, it's a done deal. But in terms of the experimenting with Max Strus in the starting lineup, what do you think of this sort of opportunity? Again, we don't know if Tyler Herro is missing time. If Tyler Herro does miss a game or even more games, what do you think about the opportunity of maybe experimenting with Strus back in as a starter and Tyler Herro maybe going back to the bench? I don't know. I don't think that this is the genesis of this happening. I think Tyler Herro can still fit in this offense. I remain bullish on Tyler Herro's fit in this offense that takes threes, that doesn't settle for mid-range jumpers. I think Tyler Herro, his best use is being part of that offense and being one of these volume three-point shooters in addition to all the other things that he does. I just think that he needs more time with these guys to figure it out. But I know that some people are questioning whether or not Tyler Herro should be part of the starting lineup right now.
Look, he's playing the exact same minutes per game as he did last year. He's taking slightly more three-pointers per game, and yet it doesn't feel like it's enough. And I think a lot of those came late in that Sacramento game, maybe a couple other games here and there where he kind of, again, he's so ignitable, which we heard about Duncan Robinson today. So I think that's kind of when he starts shifting into three-point mode. He starts realizing I can jack up these shots, whether it's from 30 feet out, just beyond the three-point line or something like that. But within the flow of the offense, that's the problem, is that I don't see it nearly enough. And I didn't see it from him when he was playing early in the first quarter. Catching the ball on the wing. A defender sails past him. He's got a step there. What does he do? He puts the ball down, drives into a defender, and then takes an 18 to 19-foot mid-range shot. That's bad offense. And that's a shot that Tyler can hit. But this is an offense that needs Tyler to be willing to take that three-point shot the way Max and Duncan were tonight.
60% of Tyler Herro's points so far this season have been unassisted. That's way too much. I would actually say that's they should probably try to inverse that, right? Where 60% are assisted, and then whatever the 40% is unassisted. But I remain bullish on the fact that his catch and shoot numbers are elite. They're right up there with the guys he was playing tonight, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. They just are. And if they could figure out a way to turn Tyler Herro into that, and while also getting some of the mid-range stuff when he has to, right? We saw Jimmy Butler take 7 threes tonight. But what happened when the offense bogged down and they needed a bucket? Jimmy Butler got a mid-range shot, and he got to his spot and he made it. And I think Tyler Herro can do that, but he just needs to pick his spots a little bit better and figure out a way to fit within this offense. We knew it was going to be a learning curve, right? We knew that. I don't think that this is news. I don't think this should be shocking to anybody. I just think he needs more time. I think, to your point, he's playing the same amount of minutes, but the minutes are just coming in different places. A lot more of those minutes are now coming alongside Jimmy and Bam specifically. And so much early in the season, so the first 7 games of the season, it kind of felt like 2 different offenses. You had basically the Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo pick and roll offense, and then you had the Jimmy Butler post up offense. And then every once in a while, when Tyler was out of the game and you had Duncan and Max in there, you got the spaced out DHO offense stuff. Tonight, it felt a lot like all the offense was the same offense, regardless of who was on the court. They need to get back to that with Tyler Herro on the court, but trying to figure out a way to tap into the stuff that makes Tyler Herro special without taking away from the flow and the identity of the offense, right?
Yeah, you can't have Bam, Jimmy, and Tyler all trying to work within 18 feet towards the rim. Like that, you're going to get some really bogged down possessions there. We've seen that, where he drives in. If he doesn't get that clear look, and given his, issues with his athleticism or his ability to create space for himself, then he's going to have to wind up dishing the ball to somebody else. Who's he going to dish to? Caleb Martin? Kyle Lowry? Neither of those guys much more of a willing three-point shooter. Kyle eventually wound up taking more threes today than I think he has for most of the season, but it's an ugly version of the offense that felt much more fluid when Tyler left the game. So I feel like we're making him, again, like I said before, the scapegoat for the offense, but you could see that there was.
I'm not. I said I'm bullish. I'm bullish. I thought the offense was playing well, even when Tyler was in there. I thought the first quarter was bad in general. I thought the Heat got outscored 30. Or no, I'm sorry.
No, they wound up pulling back.
The first half of the first quarter, it was rough, but they came back.
Tyler was in there. That's what I'm saying. Like when he was out of the game, and then Duncan and Max come in, and all of a sudden, and I look Caleb too. His athleticism has been negated. He's not taking as many threes as he did last year. He's not hitting them. I think he's hitting them at a slightly higher rate. But either way, he does not look comfortable out there also offensively. So, I mean, I would, even once Tyler comes back, I would suggest the possibility of starting Max Strus too, and just leaning into an all offensive output there. Like, I mean, I know that you might be giving up something defensively, but just what Max gives you offensively might be able to counter whatever they give up defensively too. So I don't know.
Well, Caleb wasn't even that good defensively tonight. He was getting lost, especially early in the game on some of Golden State's rotations and stuff. He was a team worst minus 18 tonight in a win. That's really it's really hard to be minus 18 in a win. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe. I question whether you'd have to stagger your rotations. You'd have to reshuffle your rotations completely to make sure you have one of Tyler or Jimmy on the court at all times. Because if you don't, and you're taking Max Strus off the 6-man role, then I wonder how that second unit scores any points. But again, you can just reshuffle your entire rotation and figure that out. I don't know. I still think that this team just needs a real power forward. How about that? But not to end on a low note, this was a huge win for the for the Heat over the Warriors. And I do think, to go back to our earlier question, I think they found something, not just in this game. I think this game was more of proof of concept of what they went over in practice on Monday. And I think we could look back, maybe not at the end of the year, but maybe if the Heat do go on a run here, a little bit of a run here, that that practice on Monday with the proof of concept win over Golden State tonight could be a huge point of the season, at least early on. All right. That'll do it for us. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified as soon as new episodes go up. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back with another recap of Wednesday night's game over the Sacramento Kings. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll see you later. Thanks for joining me, David.
Absolutely, Wes.